What's up, guys? I'm Adam from Tainted Emerald TV, and today we are taking a look at Gnomoria. That's how I say it, because I figure gnome and then Moria, like the kingdom of Moria. So this is my first look at a game. This is the first video like it. And this game is basically Dwarf Fortress. It's a sandbox village management game. You have your group of gnomes that have set off from the homelands and are trying to start up their own kingdom. This game is on Steam. It is under the Early Access tab when you go to games. It is $7.99 in the US, £5 in the UK, and I believe it's $7.99 in Australia. I would like to preface this entire video by saying it is in development, so what is shown is not necessarily representative of the final product. The first thing we're going to look at is the options menu. They actually have quite a few options for being such a simple-esque game, especially simplifying Dwarf Fortress down into this. You have windowed mode. Full screen is more of a windowed mode that's full screen, and then you have full screen borderless, which, as it says, it does not have a border. It does have different preset resolutions. We'll stick with 720 because that's what I can upload it. You can also customize it, and it has vertical sync. Audio-wise, it just has a music and effects volume. The music in this game is amazing. There are also two music styles, which is something I've never seen in a game. You have the orchestral version, which you are hearing right now in the background. I'll be quiet for a second so you can hear that. And then you also have the classic version, which is more of this. I prefer the orchestral. Honestly, it brings back memories of Final Fantasy. The gameplay there's a lot of stuff here. It does have an autosave feature, and it'll save every X amount of days. You can set this, I believe, all the way up to 12, and then all the way down to 1. I kept it at the default, which is 3, so every 3 days it saves. I don't have to worry about losing anything. It seems pretty good so far. The pause and show enemies when spotted, like it says, when an enemy is spotted near one of your gnomes or somewhere near a gnome, it will pause the game and it will automatically jump the camera there. Generate craft item jobs by default. I keep this on, but I turn it off in the workshops, which I will show you in a bit. I really don't understand this one, the amount that depth increases distance more than width or length. Not positively sure what that does. The rest is just showing different things. There will be, for like a dining room, there is a border on the ground that shows you where each of these is, where each area finishes. That's basically what that is. I keep it all on. This is all on by default. Feel free to turn it off. One thing I really liked about this game is it has full rebindable keys. You don't have to worry about not liking their setup because you can turn it all on or off depending on what you prefer. All this is default. I haven't changed anything because the way they have it set up is actually pretty good. For zoom in and zoom out, you can press the left control and zoom out or zoom in with the mouse wheel. I didn't know that until I looked it up and someone said something about it on the Gnomoria subreddit. You can rebind some of the stuff inside the game, which I will show you in just a bit. Just wanted to give you an idea of how many options there are to rebind. I don't even think... I probably do. Yeah, there's more than enough keys on the keyboard. So now I'm going to explain how the world generation works. And then instead of generating world, which can take up to, I've timed it, it's about 3 to 5 minutes to generate a world, which is pretty good compared to some other random generated worlds. this is your default. This is just the easy mode. You can rename it anything you want. That's your kingdom name. You can also randomize it. Some of the names are pretty hilarious, which I find funny because I really like that it's randomized and it has a dictionary. You can't choose it like in Dwarf Fortress, but it's there. Standard size, you have different world sizes. There is not open world, so what you generate for your kingdom is all you have. I usually generate a whole world, huge world while playing, because I feel that once I do eventually get past the first year, I will probably need the space. You have different difficulties. I'll tell you already, it's kind of like FTL. Normal is a bitch to play. It really is. I have not survived a summer in normal mode. Easy mode, I'm getting there. I've had a few kingdoms fail already because goblins are jackasses, honestly. You also had advanced. So you have the same stuff here. You can change the difficulty, the name, the map size, but you also have a seed, so if you wanted to be the 666 world, whatever. And then you can also change the center of it. You usually just keep that the exact center, 0, 0. You can also control how flat or tall the world is with these sliders. So you can have a flatter, narrow hills, and then you can have it extremely bumpy, so there'll be more hills. You can also, over here, change how deep metals are. I'd suggest for your first few your first few playthroughs and fortresses, that you put the metals to shallow because they are really deep down. I think it's around level -10 that you start finding copper and silver and stuff. And then maybe if you want to move it up to abundant. You also have difficulty sliders, which control how difficult enemies are. I usually play with this 1.7 because goblins easily kill gnomes, and gnomes don't clot. Their blood doesn't clot, and the attack rate, gnomes are weak. Unless they're in a group, they are very weak. You will lose gnomes. The attack rate, just adjust how often enemies attack, and then adjust the relative number of enemies in an attack. You can just mess with these, make it as hard or easy as you want. You have all these enemies down here. It pretty much tells you what's going to show up. You can change the strength of enemies over time, so as more enemies come and the longer you last, the more difficult it becomes. I usually just keep everything on. So far I've only dealt with goblins and some wild animals, but other than that, it's not that hard. You can also preview the world that you make at about half the size of the world. So far it's been pretty accurate, so I'm sure that it automatically generates the world, and then just the surface. I don't believe it generates anything below the surface. So that's that. We are going to actually not start a new world. I'm going to jump into my personal world that I've been playing on. I'm in the 3rd day of fall in the first year, and they are the Smiley Heartfulness. So it's a pretty fun game. I played about 16 hours of it. I don't feel like I'm a master of the game. There's still a lot I don't understand. So let's go into it. I'll let this load. It does take a little bit to load. Not very long, not as quick as I'd like. So it's very overwhelming when you first look at it. And yes, there are dead gnomes on the ground. They kind of got attacked by a goblin. So one of the first things I want to point out is actually this up here in the left corner. This is probably where you're going to where you should glance every now and then. You have your depth. So as you see, as I scroll with the mouse wheel, it goes up or down relative to what direction I scroll. If I press Control, the left control, and zoom in or out with the mouse, it does that. You also have food, which is very important. Gnomes need to eat, and drink. Gnomes are kind of alcoholics. They're similar to dwarves. I'm pretty sure some gnomes are related to them. So this is the top level of my fortress, my kingdom if you want, because fortress is dwarfs. Next, up in the top right, you have the date and then when the sun will rise. This is very important because enemies will spawn in the dark that is around gnomes. So in the sun, goblins won't spawn. Goblins and other such creatures will not spawn. It's good to have a few torches, and it's also good to keep an eye on that. It's probably a good idea to light up your fortress with torches and keep gnomes inside a wall or something. I'm next going to point out the action bar, because it's sitting down there, it's kind of big. The action bar, you have 6 menus. Well, not really menus, the last 2 are deconstruction and removing stuff. You have terrain, agriculture, build, designate area, deconstruct, and remove designation. So with the terrain, that is basically your digging. You have mine, dig, remove floor, remove ramp, replace wall, and then replace floor, and then 7 fill a hole. Some of these menus do have sub-menus, but I'm not going to show all of it because I kind of want to get through it quickly and show you a little bit of gameplay before I want to explain all this and then actually play it. That's your terrain. You have agriculture, you can build farms, pastures, you can plant groves, you can fell trees, take clippings, and forage. Take clippings, you will strip a tree down to just the trunk, and then you can cut it down. That's a very good thing to do because you need clippings for winter when nothing will grow. And then you can forage. You have your apple trees, and there's little strawberries and cotton plants. Build, you have workshops, you have mechanisms, furniture, storage, and then terrain. So for this wall, for example, this was not there naturally, even though it is a dirt wall. I built that by using the terrain option. I built this using the workshops. Let's see if I can find you a chair. This over here is your chairs and stuff that's built with the furniture, and then workshops are your sawmills and other such things. Designate areas, that's basically you designate your farms, you designate stockpiles, you designate rooms and dining rooms. There's actually quite a bit here. Hospitals, guard areas, patrol routes, pastures, and farms. Basically, if you've played Dwarf Fortress, you know a little bit about this game already. Skills do transfer over pretty well, and I feel that that's pretty good because a lot of games are trying to be Dwarf Fortress while also making it more appealing to people and easier to get into. Really, that's it. Deconstruct, you deconstruct stuff. Next are these menus up here. You have Kingdom, which is a general overview of your kingdom. It tells you your world seed, so if you wanted to play on this world again. It tells you your difficulty, which I'm on custom. Your population, how many workshops you have, just everything. This over here, your stock worth, construction worth, and total worth, depending on what that is, depends on the difficulty of the enemies when you have and how often they attack. And it also tells you, there isn't an exact ratio, but it gives you a general idea of how many gnomes you're going to get. You have workshops and how many are idle, and I've never seen that, the gnome room one. Oh, that means that one of these workshops is full. Each workshop can only hold X amount of things before it loses efficiency. It's kind of detailed. So you have all that. Pastures gives you a nice place where you can see what you have and quickly jump to them. So you have your farms. I have cotton, wheat, strawberry. You have your pastures. There are 3 different animals. There are llamas, yaks, and emus. Emus give you eggs, llamas give you wool, and yaks give you milk. And you can also butcher the animals for their meat. And then you have rooms. These are all the rooms that I have, including dining rooms and great halls and stuff. Stocks will give you how much food and different items you have. It's very helpful to know that. Food and drink are probably the most important things. You always want to have more of that. Food does not spoil, so you don't have to worry about it going bad and losing food. Gnomes do pig out occasionally, and you start losing food quickly. You want to get a kitchen and a distillery up as fast as possible. If you can also get armor and weapons up too, because gnomes kind of need them. It tells you all the different stockpiles I have and items. It tells you how much of stuff you have, so you don't need to worry about making a bookkeeper like in Dwarf Fortress. So that's all the goods I have, that's all the furniture, mechanisms, tools. You get it. You get the gist of it. This one is probably the most important menu up here. This is the population tab. This tells you everything about your gnomes. So here is my population, how many gnomes I have lost, how many are idle, and how many are injured, and then how many I have assigned to each job. A cool thing about this is you do have custom jobs, so I can make any profession that I want. If I want someone to just be a cook, they're a cook. This tells you the name of your dwarves, their profession, and what they are currently doing. Sorry, I wanted to be on the main floor of this. A lot of these are stocking items and crafting items, doing their jobs, except this one, because he's the doctor, there's no one injured. Professions. This is where you can create your own professions, customize the professions that are already there, and then also give each profession its job priority. Gnomes will do things based on the priority of what it is in the list. So if they're going to be doing something at the workshop, a miner, for example, will not do that because I don't have him assigned to anything for it. Except, okay, masonry and stone carving. So if there is a mason stone cutting close by, he will then look at how close stone is, and then he will base that on algorithms and such. So if stone is close and there is nothing designated to mine, he'll do that before he goes to mine. Whatever is closest, but higher up on the priority list. And then the deceased, because they like to remind you that you are a terrible person. Most of these, they die pretty quick. First day of, I had Bangir. He was of the first wave of my gnomes. He died 6 days later, and he was a male. These are his skills, which is a very good thing to know now. Not that I didn't know it, but something I can point out to you guys. Each gnome is different. Each one is completely different. They're randomized skills, and each one is good at a different thing, and they have different attributes depending on who they are. You have their attributes, which just tells you how easily they get tired out, how hard they work, and how easy it is for them to focus on a job and just work one job. You have combat skills, you have a bunch of different things they can know, and then you have their task skills. It's a good idea for when you first start up the game and you have your gnomes sitting there to look at what you have. Look at what their skills are and what they can be assigned to. Usually it will assign the best gnome possible to the original 9 professions I believe there are. Someone with good animal husbandry will be the rancher. Someone with good mining will be a miner, masonry, whatever. Usually chooses the best gnome for the job. And then it also has kills. So this guy killed 1 honey badger, and he probably died to the honey badger. Military-wise, this is just your squads. This is the overview. This is what military squads you have and how many soldiers. These are the different squads, and you can set them up differently. You can have new squad, randomize the name, disband it, so they'll forget they're in it. Formations are just different types of squads, what they'll be comprised of, and what each squad will do. You have different perks. I'm not going to go through them all. You can get the game and look at it. So each one has a different perk that will benefit the squad in different ways. You can designate what the leaders are, and then you have different positions. It's all very into it. You have to play around with it to really get what's going on here. So positions are you can make a soldier, you can make archers, whatever, and then uniforms. So say I want everyone to wear the best armor possible and all have shields and swords. I can do that here. So that's the military one. For events, this is just like it sounds. It's all the major events that have happened. It just gives you a quick overview of what happened. So I had 6 nomads appear, and you can jump to where it is. Combat is basically what it says. It has a combat log. It's about as in depth as Dwarf Fortress, just a little less so. It's pretty graphic because it tries not to do as much on screen. Help is just your basic tutorials and stuff. Now I will show you just kind of what the game looks like running. If you've seen what the StoneSense plugin for Dwarf Fortress looks like, that's kind of what it reminds me of. Each of my dwarves are doing their job. They will stock items, they will move stuff around, they will craft items, and they will move around and do their thing. Some of the workshops, the one thing I do not like about this game, and it's probably my only irk with it, is the way workshops work. So to craft a workshop, you have to go to build, you have to go to workshops, and then you need to scroll down, find what you want, and then it'll tell you what materials are needed for the workshop. For a kiln, I need a furnace and a bellows. I have those, so this isn't a very good example, but like, let's see. This, engineer shop. I need a workbench, a chair, and a wrench. Oh, this was recently added. I didn't see that change. It actually does tell you. I was about to say, it doesn't tell you where stuff is made, so you kind of have to find it for yourself. But it does, so I'm wrong on that. But other than that, it's pretty intuitive. You do have to designate where it is, so if I want to build let's find the kiln again. Kiln, that'll heat up all my clay and I will be able to make clay products. So if I want to, I put that there. Now, it could take a second for a gnome to decide that he wants to build it. It could take up to a season or more for a gnome to decide if they're there. We are going to go to population, assign, and our builder is stocking items right now. It has everything it needs, but the gnomes, because they work on a priority list, will not necessarily build that. It's kind of like Dwarf Fortress. You can't control what they do, but you have a little bit. See. She's bringing all the stuff needed for it, and she's going to build our kiln right there. It takes a few seconds, and then we can go in, and we can assign it jobs. The jobs are all different, and each workstation has its own set of jobs and what it does. The overview, you can assign priority to it, so if you want your sawmill to always be running, you set that to priority 1, and then you can assign a person to it, and that's all they'll do. The efficiency is based on the available space, so as more stuff is put into it, the more crowded it gets and the less efficient it gets. You can suspend it so that nothing will be built there, and gnomes will forget it exists. It's kind of good when you start getting a lot of stuff going on and all of a sudden you have too much of something. Accept generated jobs is an option that is also in the main options menu. What it does is if I need planks from the sawmill for my carpenter, the carpenter will tell the sawmill, hey, I need planks. So the sawmill will then start producing planks for that job. It gets in the way, and I feel like it doesn't work correctly because it seems to mess up the priority of the workshop, and then I've had gnomes actually leave the sawmill that they were working on because of it. So I've had planks on here for repeat, and then because of these ones, the person stopped working. I feel like it doesn't work right. But you can control the different types of stuff that goes into it, stone and stuff. So like stone cutter, I can make raw bauxite blocks, which are these. They look like these, and then stone cutters. There's a lot to the game, and really, I feel like even after 16 hours of playing this game, I still don't know everything, which I love. I love games like that. We're actually going to queue up a job here in the kiln. These statuettes, they're kind of like mugs in Dwarf Fortress. You use them to get a bunch of money quickly. Like Dwarf Fortress, your gnomes have different skills. I'm actually going to queue this up while I'm talking. Repeat, so that means as long as there's material, it'll keep going. Like Dwarf Fortress, your gnomes are skilled in stuff, and as they do something, they get more skill, and they get better at it, and the higher quality stuff that is made. One thing I forgot to mention that is probably the most important thing is this. This room right here is called the Great Hall. Now, how I said the kingdom worth make it so that more gnomes come, it's actually the Great Hall. The more grand of Great Hall you have, the more gnomes you will receive. So far, the biggest wave I've received is 6. I'm not sure if it can go over, and that was with this, the 2,155 Great Hall. So it's a good idea to get one of these up and running by probably about the 5th day of spring and start loading crap into it. It doesn't have to necessarily look nice to the eye, so I could just put tables everywhere. And as you see, there is no collision, so they'll walk straight through the tables or chairs. So you can just fill it up with very high quality chairs and get a huge Great Hall. Basically, that's it. Remember, this game is in development, so everything I've said here and shown you is not necessarily how the game is going to be once it's released. Like I said, it is on Steam. It is $7.99 in the US, it is £5 in the UK, and it is also $7.99 in Australia. I believe that's if the website I used was correct for Steam pricing. Basically, it's Dwarf Fortress. It's a little bit simpler and easier to get into. It's not as overwhelming. And I feel that's a very plus side because there are a lot of people who want to get into Dwarf Fortress, but they're afraid to because of the way it looks and how much of a learning curve there is. It does have its problems, but because it's in alpha or beta, I'm not sure, they really haven't said. It's probably an alpha with 0.87, whatever it is. It does have its problems, but I feel like they have been fixing them quite a bit. Basically, if you want to know more about it, check out the Gnomoria subreddit. Check out their website. There's a wiki. It will teach you how to play, and there are plenty of tutorials on it, and I might even do a few tutorials for it. Thank you for watching, guys. I've been Adam from Untitled TV, and this has been a Let's Look at Gnomoria. I will see you guys in the next video.